90,000 Roman soldiers stood on a beach in Gaul, swords drawn, shields raised, trumpets screaming across the sand. They were waiting for an order to invade Britain, an island most of them believed was the edge of the world. Instead, their emperor pointed his sword at the waves and commanded his legions to attack the ocean. No enemy ships, no invasion fleet, just the sea and the man who believed he could conquer it. When the battle ended, the soldiers weren't ordered to bury the dead, they were ordered to collect seashells. This is the story of how the most powerful army on earth was sent to war against water, and the emperor unhinged enough to declare victory. Rome, 12 AD. In a military camp on the German frontier, a toddler is dressed in a miniature soldier's uniform, tiny boots, a tiny breastplate. The legions adore him. They give him a nickname that will outlive every title he ever earns, Caligula, Little Boots. His father, Germanicus, is the most beloved general in the empire, handsome, victorious. Loved by the people the way only a man destined for greatness is loved. Then, in 19 AD, Germanicus dies in Syria, poisoned, some whisper. The finger points toward Emperor Tiberius himself. It is the first death, it will not be the last. One by one, Caligula watches his family destroyed, his mother exiled, starved to death. His brothers imprisoned, one beaten until he dies in a dungeon, the other forced to take his own life. By the time Caligula is 19, he is nearly the last of his bloodline standing. And he is standing in the house of the man many believe murdered his family. He learns in that palace the only lesson that matters: trust no one, show nothing, survive. The historian Suetonius later writes that even as a young man, Caligula concealed a violent, cruel nature beneath a mask of perfect obedience. A mask he wears flawlessly for 6 more years in the household of Tiberius on the island of Capri, waiting for the old man to die. 37 AD, Tiberius is dead. And Rome, exhausted by a decade of paranoia and executions, erupts in celebration. Caligula, 24 years old, is carried into the city as a savior. The son of the beloved Germanicus, finally on the throne, he opens the treasury, he cancels unjust taxes, he stages games the people have never seen, gladiators, wild beasts, spectacle without end. He recalls the exiled, he burns the old treason records in public in a bonfire the crowd cheers for. For a moment, just a moment, Rome believes the nightmare is over. But 6 months into his reign, Caligula falls violently ill. He survives. He is not the same man who fell sick. Historians disagree on why: illness, trauma resurfacing, absolute power finally unrestrained, perhaps all three. What is certain is this: the generosity stops. The paranoia of his childhood, the poison, the exile, the murdered brothers, returns, but now it belongs to the most powerful man alive. He begins executing rivals on suspicion alone. He forces senators to watch as their sons are put to death, then invites the grieving fathers to dinner that same night and forces them to laugh. He tells a consul chillingly that with one word he could have his throat cut on the spot. The treasury Caligula so generously emptied now needs refilling. So he invents new ways to fill it: forced inheritances, manufactured treason charges, auctions of condemned men's property while their families still weep beside the block. Rome does not yet call him mad, Rome calls him dangerous, and Rome learns to look away. But the strangest chapter of his reign is still ahead of him on a beach at the edge of the known world. 39 AD, Caligula announces something no emperor has attempted in generations: the conquest of Britain. Julius Caesar himself had only set foot there, never truly claimed it. Caligula intends to finish what Caesar started and eclipse him in the process. He marches an army of nearly 100,000 men, legionaries, engineers, siege equipment, across Gaul, to the northern coast, to the very channel where Britain waits, gray and distant. Across the water, the soldiers ready themselves, ships are prepared. This is the invasion Rome has been promised. And then, according to the ancient historians who recorded it, the order comes. Not advance, attack the sea. The accounts written by Suetonius and later Cassius Dio, both writing after Caligula's death, both hostile to his memory, describe legionaries wading into the surf. Trumpets sound the charge, soldiers hurl javelins into the tide, blades slash at the incoming waves as if cutting down an enemy line. Caligula watches from the shore, they say, dressed for battle, commanding the assault on an enemy that cannot bleed, cannot retreat, cannot surrender. When it is over, he declares victory over Poseidon himself. Then comes the final order, the detail that outlives every other story about him. The soldiers are told to gather seashells from the beach. Spoils of war, trophies of conquest, to be hauled back to Rome and displayed as proof that the emperor had defeated the ocean. No invasion of Britain ever happens. The legions never cross the channel. Historians have debated this episode for 2,000 years. Some believe it was theater, a staged humiliation designed to test the loyalty of an army he no longer trusted, or a coded punishment for a mutiny brewing in the ranks. Others take Suetonius and Dio at their word, that the Emperor of Rome truly believed he had gone to war with the sea and won. Whatever the truth, the message to Rome is unmistakable. The man on the throne no longer plays by the logic of ordinary men, and back in the capital, the Senate he has terrorized for 2 years is done waiting to find out what he does next. By the time Caligula returns to Rome, the rumors have hardened into belief. He has started appearing in public dressed as the gods, as Jupiter, as Hercules, as Venus. He commissions a temple to his own divinity with a statue of himself made in gold, dressed fresh each day to match his own wardrobe. He is said to have built a marble stable and a jeweled collar for his favorite horse, Incitatus, and, according to the more sensational accounts, mused about naming the animal a consul of Rome. Modern historians suspect this was less devotion to a horse than a calculated insult, a way of telling the Senate exactly what he thought their office was worth. The senators who once whispered about his father's murder now whisper about their own. They smile in his presence and pray in private. Because everyone in that palace has learned the same lesson Caligula learned as a boy on Capri. In a house where the emperor decides who lives, the mask is the only thing keeping you alive. The difference is, this time more than one person is wearing one. January 24th, 41 AD. Caligula is 28 years old, 4 years into a reign that began with a nation's hope and is ending in its terror. He walks through a private corridor beneath the Palatine Hill on his way to watch a theatrical performance, a passage meant to shield an emperor from the crowd. Instead, it hides his killers. Cassius Chaerea, an officer of his own Praetorian Guard, a man Caligula had mocked for years, taunting his voice, forcing him to answer for orders using humiliating passwords, steps forward. The first blow lands, then more from more hands. Guardsmen he trusted, striking again and again, until the corridor runs red with the blood of a man who once believed he had defeated the sea itself. His wife and infant daughter are killed within hours. The boy dressed as a tiny soldier, the emperor who dressed as a god, dies in a stone hallway, alone, surrounded by the very men swore to die for him. History remembers Caligula almost entirely through the words of the men who survived him, senators and historians writing under emperors who needed his madness to look worse than their own restraint. Some of what we know may be exaggeration, some of it may be myth dressed as record. But strip away the embellishment and one truth remains unshaken by 2,000 years of retelling: absolute power given to a boy who learned as a child that trust gets you killed does not create a wiser man. It creates a more dangerous one. Caligula didn't just fail to conquer Britain. He commanded an empire to believe he had defeated an enemy that never existed, and for a while, an empire terrified enough to survive him did exactly that. The seashells were carried back to Rome as trophies of a war that was never fought against an enemy that never noticed. Perhaps that was always the real conquest, not the sea. Just the silence of everyone too afraid to say it never happened. So was Caligula genuinely insane, or was he Rome's most misunderstood tyrant, buried under 20 centuries of hostile propaganda? Tell me what you think in the comments.